I work with a consortium of scientists called the Mind Hacking Strategy Group, and we report the abuses of science to the public. A lot of this is top secret technologies that the general public isn't aware of, and in particular we focus on mind control technologies. I've recently published a book with these guys titled Project Soul Catcher, and it's Secrets of Cyber and Cybernetic Warfare. The framework that's being used in a lot of these human experiments on the public is that of computer science hacking, hacking into individual minds or a population. Cybernetics means the art of steering and control. So mind control is the focus of a lot of my research. I've interviewed over 650 people that have been subjected to these new types of technologies, and it's quite incredible. This is really the most important advancement humankind has made. The technologies can be used for good or evil, but in this case, right now we see the militarized applications, the weaponized applications of it, but it will change the world far more than the internet, cars, or penicillin combined. This is a major technological paradigm shift of how humans view themselves. There's definitely a pattern that each target goes through, and so it's important to divulge those. There's a lot of trickery involved. The art of war is really the art of deception. There's one colonel that said, you can find to Dr. Frey, if you can find a way to pipe voices into people's heads, I will find a way to talk them to their gut. So they've been thinking about this for a long time, and it involves a lot of different sciences. It's fascinating to scale this. It involves a lot of artificial intelligence. The signal processing and sensor technologies are amazingly complex. So one can really spend a lifetime researching this, both from the victim standpoint, the perception, as well as from the technological standpoint. The research from our team has shown the beginnings of it all the way back before World War II, but the very first case that we could track back of these mind control technologies was 1959, and then there seemed to be a huge increase in 1976 of reported cases as the worldwide system came online, and then it's been growing since. The number of people that are claiming that they're being grabbed for human experimentation and mind control specifically in the last years, and it seems to be in line with Department of Defense budgets. So more money they have, more projects they can run and test and improve the efficacy of the weapon system. If you can do it wirelessly without EEG probes, then you literally can control every human with a nervous system on Earth, and even other animals with nervous systems. And so it's considered one of the most coveted weapon systems, where it has dial-in lethality, take control of the enemy's thoughts and opinions. You can use it on your own population to control voting and mass opinion. It has a very wide range of applications that they're researching. And I think the reason that really Dr. John Hall and myself have do a lot of radio shows is just to help the public become more informed. What are these technologies, that they really exist, and that the U.S. government has a long history of using humans in experimentation. The human consciousness has been deciphered on the most part, and this opens Pandora's box in a lot of ways. One of the weapon systems called Satan, which stands for Silent Fascination Through Dapping Networks, and these are neural networks. They used to be, it came out of the CIA's programs on MK-Ultra behavior modification. Now, you can just simply cause pain in a person when correlated with some action. Well, you can alter behavior, but they've taken this many steps past that. They can replay very specific pains into a person. So you can imagine an MP3 player that has recorded brainwaves of pains of people being shot, burned, and other kinds of tortures, you can literally replay those into the enemy's mind. Full mind melding, in a sense. It's a great interrogation tool. So if you saw a movie called Inception, and that's where they try to get into the person's head, plant ideas, pull out information. That's all exactly where the technology is at. It has a lot of downfalls that, doesn't work well with some people, and that's why they're trying to improve it. It takes a lot of time. You can't just do this to somebody in one day and walk away. So as a warfare weapon, it's a better spy tool, intelligence gathering tool. When you clone a brainwaves, and it's more complicated than I'm describing, but you are able to see what the other person is seeing, and you're able to hear what the other person's hearing, as well as influence them. So there are a whole bunch of trickeries once you're cloned with somebody. Let's say you wanted to kill somebody with this. Well, there's a long list, and you can find a lot of them in my last book, but you could dip a knee while someone's walking down the stairs, make them tumble. You can cause all sorts of illnesses. The CIA calls them lingering ailments, to disable the person, make them feel sick all the time, and have the symptoms of many diseases, yet not have the disease itself. And as I said, spying is the big thing. The wording's changed quite a bit. They used to call it psi warfare, psychic warfare, and those have different meanings, different people. But the concepts have been proven over and over again. That another movie like Avatar, it's sort of like that experience where you're living in someone else's mind or body, and they use sensory deprivation tanks. The brain will self-organize with external stimulus signals, be it from another person, if their own body isn't being provided any stimulus. So the dreams become reality. So yeah, the technology is much more advanced than people think. In 1973, an Army intelligence officer came forward to speak about wars that we were having with Russia during the Cold War, that they were beaming our population with microwaves at a psychotronic signal frequency, and that signal frequency was supposed to subdue our population, make them calm, placid, as if we were the aggressor. So we started doing the same to their population. And so there's been admission that these technologies have been used for a long time, both in secret wars and probably overtly by a government as well. So the possibilities are limitless for good or evil. I mean, we're tampering with the very soul itself. The part of the breakdown of the personality was done by Dr. Ewan Cameron, head of his field in psychiatry. He took a few patients with mild depression and brainwashed them. And washing means completely erasing their personality. Now, he used electroshock and drugs and something that's actually called two-track tapes that would say, your mother hates you, just a bunch of negative things over and over again while they're sleeping with these helmets on. Now, in the modern day version of brainwashing, they use computer chatterboxes. And so these can do far more than just a two-track tape, but they're still using the same techniques, and whatever bothers you, creates the greatest stress level, they will continue on that track. And the people that have sort of escaped it have great confidence in themselves and their social networks, and aren't bothered by these negative piped-in messages. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's personalized now to each individual. And one of the creepy aspects of mind control, not being able to tell your own thoughts, desires, and feelings from those injected. One colonel who was working on this technology, it was called psychotronics at the time, he said with 5 channels, the target feels sympathetic influence. At 12, it feels like an alien influence, and at 15, they cannot distinguish their own thoughts from those injecting. So yeah, it depends on the level of technology being used on the person. And in the worst case scenario, maybe we all are being influenced and controlled, and subliminal messages are being piped into our dreams and our heads. And hopefully it's not that bad, and they're just working on targeting specific individuals, which makes the weapon system much more powerful than just blanketing over a population. They're testing every aspect of mind control, and they have really conquered the human mind. And one of the more interesting aspects is that of remote influence. Now, remote viewing has connotations of voodoo, but this is all based on technology. And this is cloning the visual cortex and audio cortexes of the human brain onto another person, or integrating it even with computer systems. So the combinations they're called hive minds. So if you're trying to create a really efficient work group, the CIA right now uses about 3 or 4 people in a group, and they synchronize their brains, their minds, and their major rhythms. And that's when secrets begin to sleep, as Colonel John Alexander said. And during this phase, well, it's great for interrogation, mind interrogation, mind probing, but it's also a state of increased intelligence. You're, in a sense, adding brain tissue, but wirelessly, virtual neurons to each of the participants. You can see that might be a great swarm theory, they call it, by the RAND Corporation, or Beowulf clusters, or wolf clusters is another term that's used, where you can network human beings faster than you would through cell phones, for example. And there's no evidence of it. So the brain itself is the receiver, and the active sensing technologies are able to pick that up. And so there's no evidence that they're in some sort of spy group or black ops mission. So it's used, it's being tested for that as well. In the experimentation, there are people we found that just get B2K, and the B2K is only positive, although that's a rare case. Usually it's always negative messaging. Some people get tortured. Some people get both. And it runs the gamut. So you can imagine, if you're trying to test a new drug, you want a random sample, and you want to pull out all the different variables, and it's called discriminant function analysis. And so you want to test it on different people in different types of variations of the hypnosis, of the mind control, of the stalking, and to see what is most effective. And they've found a way to automate it and literally ramp it up, and I think that's one reason why we're seeing more TIs. It could be also that more TIs have access to the internet, and that's helping people get together and share notes. But it does look like it's being ramped up.
Yeah, and to me it looks like it's going more toward a societal or a large span of people, crowd control, the thought control of a nation type of thing. I mean, that's right. It's not going to just be, controlling this one and that one individually. It almost seems like it's got to go nationwide or even worldwide.
This is more effective than normal propaganda. You can affect people while they're sleeping and working. They don't even need to shut off their televisions to get programming. So every country in the world, of course, their goal is to shepherd their people into one conformed thinking pattern. You can understand why this is so top secret. The very concept of free will is destroyed. We've been debating this for thousands of years, and to have that argument finalized, well, all of Western philosophy, and from crime and punishment to religion, relies on this concept of free will. They can't just announce it and then say, oh, by the way, we've been running torture experiments on people all around the world. There is a weapon system discussed in my book called Satan, and it stands for Silence is Fascination Through Adapting Networks. So you can imagine all the, you have a behavioral modification tool, weapon. You can have dial-in lethality simply by manipulating the humans themselves to hurt themselves. And it uses all the best medical discoveries except in the negative. You know, fire can be used to keep people warm and heat food, kill bacteria, or it can be used to burn down villages. And so this is an extreme example of weaponization of the medical profession. Once you understand how large of a sample set, how much human suffering they've allowed to put into this, developing it, the number of dollars, there's no way they're going to give this up. And this is here to stay. And the people in control that are, I'm sure, so seduced by its power that they rather see the human race go away before this does.